What's up, guys?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We have Tilly right here.
We're interviewing
right now.
Tilly today.
Yeah, she's a little bit wild.
She looks like she's doing karate.
Yeah, she is doing karate now. We're good. Oh my goodness, she's a monster right now. I have to kick her out of here.
All right.
Oh yeah, you are doing karate. Is there anything in the TV room that you can do, or no? And get your toe out of your mouth. That's disgusting.
Her foot?
Yeah. You're very flexible, but that's
oh my
disgusting.
gosh. Looks like there's just like a foot coming into like from someone else across screen here.
And not even holding it, just lifting her foot up with not having to pick your foot up. I can barely lift my feet up off the ground. So who was on the podcast today?
We got Mike Telich on the podcast today. So round 2, Baton Rouge builder, family man down in Louisiana.
I'm trying to yell at Tilly while you're talking.
Well, you're whisper yelling.
I know. I like Mike. I've always liked Mike. I met him a couple of years ago. He his work's awesome. Yeah. It's like what I would like to do on a larger scale. Not that I want to be doing that, but he comes from a finished carpentry background, and that's what he was doing. And then some customers just loved him doing their finished carpentry. And we're like, hey, if you ever build houses, then you can come build our house. And I think, that was on the last podcast, how he kind of got into it. But he's taken that finished carpentry, detail-oriented mindset into building entire homes in that process. And it definitely shows in his work.
Yeah, in this episode, we really talk about his process and, how it relates to being better about schedule, communication, not competitively bidding on projects and what that means and how, you're communicating that to a potential client and why that's valuable to a potential client. But also just being a really good advocate for your trade partners. And I think that's something that is, hugely important, especially in the world that we live in with, the skilled labor issue.
Yeah, I think you guys, there's some good takeaways for Mike for sure. And if nothing else, you'll go check out his work and be very impressed. All of his stuff's so good.
Let's get into it.
Dude, we're cooking with fire.
Dude, if I walked that far, I'd be in my neighbor's house down the street.
Where the heck are you?
I'm in my kitchen now.
You get all those gaps filled in that floor?
No.
What are you waiting for?
Nah,
man.
AC bill's going to be high this year.
It's bad.
Is it warm down there already?
It's 95 today.
95?
Is it really?
Dang.
Yeah.
Last week it said it was
down
in
Louisiana.
Yes,
How long has it been in the 90s?
The past week and a half, it's been in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in like the low 80s before then. It was pleasant, but now it's just like hot and humid already.
Yeah.
Where are you, on the bayou?
Down on the bayou.
Wait, so you're in your own house now, right?
Yeah. I didn't. I figured I'd have more success here than in the office. And Jennifer's in the office today doing invoicing and billing, so I didn't want to disrupt her. So.
How old's your house?
70s.
Oh, it was built in the 70s?
Yeah, it was built with all old materials though, so it's like
really?
Super cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was old. Yeah, I thought it was way older than that.
Yeah, that was that's kind of what that architect did, was old materials, make it look authentic. So.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought you bought like an old house. 70s?
Mike, it's like 70s is old, man.
Yeah, seriously.
Nah, 74. I think it got finished in 74.
And are you what, the third owner, fourth owner?
Second
owner?
Second. Bought it from the original owner.
That's awesome.
And they built it for themselves? Mm-hmm. How old were they now?
They're going to be in their 70s now. upper
Why'd
70s.
they sell? Just too big?
Yeah, it's a bigger piece of property, so I think that they wanted to downsize so they didn't have this thorn in their side with maintaining all this grass and trees and yard.
How much property do you have?
5 acres.
You need to get a mower. I could see you mowing.
And a push mower.
No, you don't.
Oh, yeah.
You don't mow your lawn. There's no way.
I don't mow my lawn.
I was gonna say I wouldn't mow my lawn. I would buy a mower to do it a handful of times, and then I just would be like, no.
I was going to get
You got gators and stuff on your property?
Got some turtles, lots of raccoons, lots of squirrels, lots of birds.
No gators. Jeez.
Yeah.
When did you? So where were you before?
In a neighborhood across the street, so literally I could walk there.
And how did was this house for sale, or did you like approach them?
So this house, there's 3 houses back here that are all designed by the same architect. And years ago, I had a customer call me. There's 3 homes, and there was a piece of land that was subdivided off. I had a customer call me and ask if I wanted to buy a lot from them that was, a couple, 2-3 acres. And I didn't even know this existed back here. So I came back here, saw, I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that this, existed in Baton Rouge. But I wasn't interested at the time. So then another one of the people that actually own a house in here, they called me and they wanted to build a detached garage, shop, bunch of stuff. So we coordinated with the architect, and that's how it kind of got on my radar with getting a little bit further into the property. And then another home came up for sale in here, and we looked at it with multiple customers, and it just required a lot of work. So everybody was, I don't want to do it. I don't want to undertake that. And then finally someone bought that house and called me and said, hey, I heard that you looked at this with a bunch of people. Since you know about it, do you want to do the work on it? So we did that. In the meantime, this house came up for sale, but we never really looked at it. I was actually in the process of having plans drawn for a new house for us, and we had been doing that for a couple years. And this home was designed by A. Haystown. The house that I had being designed was being drawn by an architect in town, but the criteria that I gave them was like number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, make the house look like it came out of the A. Haystown book. And then I wanted a room to hang my hunting trophies and this and just a few other little minor things. Well, this house is a Haystown house. It came up for sale. We had finished the plans, and my wife was really wanting to start building, but COVID had just started. So I was, unsure what building costs were going to be, what our future was going to hold for us as far as work-wise went. So I was like, look, before we commit to building this house, this is the real deal. This is what we designed the house after. Let's just go look at it. So we came and looked at it, and it was like, no brainer. Let's do it. So I sold our other lot that we had and negotiated with the owner on this house.
Did you sell the design with it?
No, it wasn't my design to sell.
Did you sell the design with it?
I did.
You should have sold building that house anyway.
What do you mean, that if I would sell a lot I had to build a house too?
Like you already owned that lot that you were going to build your own house?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just sold the lot. You didn't sell the design with it.
It was pretty specific to what we wanted, so.
All right, so how many square feet was the house that you were going to build?
It spiraled out of control, and that's another reason that we didn't. So we designed this house over 3 years on and off, and put, I'm sure customers can relate to this. They splurge in one area, and then you don't forget about it, or you don't remember it. So then you start back with the plans, and you're like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do that too. Well, you've done that over 3 years, and you're not remembering everything else that you've added early on in the project, designing the house. And then the next thing you know, you end up with this 10,000 square foot monstrosity that has splurges all over it, and it's just it
Right.
became something that like I didn't want to pay for and I couldn't afford to build in the first place. So
That's the
So
interesting.
how many square feet is your new house?
7,000.
That's still very big.
That's pretty big.
Pretty big. But this is like this, Mike, what you just said, like, it's so interesting because we just went through this, the new home that we're building with Steve Teak. You know, that house started at like a 4,000 square foot house.
Yeah.
And that was the goal. And now we're 8,000. And it's like, man, how did you double? Like, that's insane. Like, how did you go from 4? And it's because the 4,000 was just this random made up number.
Yeah.
It had no, like, there was no criteria to what that was based on. All it was based on was that, oh, I've been in a house that's 4,000 square feet, and that felt right. It's like, okay, but now what do you want? It's like, well, I want this, and I want that, and I want 2 offices, and I want that, and I want. It's like, okay, like, let's ignore how many square feet that is, and let's just find out how to build a house that has all those things, and figure out how many square feet we have when we're done.
So the process
And that's
that
exactly what.
we did when we were designing that house, we met with the architect, and he like asked us how many bedrooms you want, how many bathrooms, and then even more specifically, what kind of furniture do you want in your dining room? How many people do you want to seat? How many people, like, what kind of seating arrangement do you want in your living room? In your trophy room, are you going to have a desk? Are you going to have bookshelves or gun cases or this or that? Are your kids going to have a queen size bed? Are they going to have a twin size bed? Are they going to have a king size bed? So we went through all of that, and he drew out each room. And I think he kind of knew where they would potentially go in a floor plan, but he didn't show us that. He literally cut those rooms out in scale squares and said, all right, you said that you want to have 2 sofas and 4 chairs in your living room and a fireplace. This is the size that it needs to be. Are you cool with that? Yeah, that seems like that would work. So then he adds all of the square footage of those rooms up, and he has some formula then that for hallways and extra space, he's going to add another 15 or 22%, whatever the number is. And he says, all right, look, your house is going to be living area between 6 and 6,500 square foot. And then your additional square footage that you have, your garages, your outdoor space, your porches, are another 4,000 square foot. Like, okay. So he didn't technically let us get too far down the road with designing this full-scale home without kind of knowing where we were going to end. But the problem is, there's 2-story masses. So downstairs, we were like, hey, we want the living room to be larger. We can't just enlarge the first story of a 2-story box. It forces the second story of that box to get bigger too. So it makes all the kids' bedrooms a lot larger, which necessarily aren't the most expensive part of the home, right? It's not like you're adding a second kitchen or an additional bathroom, but you still got to buy floors, and you probably have longer floor joists and longer ceiling joists, and you probably have a couple more recessed lights in those rooms when they get larger. So it does add cost. But, it was direct result of us just slowly over this time period adding and tweaking and, do this. Put beams here in the ceiling. Let's do this. Well, let's put these windows all the way down to the floor. So it just snowballed.
But that's such an important part, and some of the best architects that we've been able to work with, especially in planning, like, they go about it that way.
Yeah.
Where it's like, let's, because if you just say, okay, you're asking for an 8,000 square foot house or a 6,000 square foot house, you get gun shy there, where it's like, hold on, just let's talk about this room by room and understand how each of these rooms are used, and then we'll total it up and add the 15 to 22%, and then now here's the range that it sounds like you're going to be in. And it's, because I feel like everything is automatically like, they go right to the footage. It's like, how many square feet do you want? It's like, I know I want 4,000. And it's like, well, what is that 4,000 coming from? Is that coming from the fact that you're trying to hit a particular budget? Like, hey, I'm trying to be $2 million in build cost. It's like, okay, well, so you're trying to build a 4,000 square foot house at $500 a square foot. That's your constraint. Not the 4,000 isn't your constraint. The $2 million is your constraint.
Yeah.
And it's, and when you have to that's one of the things that we talk about early on. And Mike, you wanted to talk about your process today, and I'm interested to hear what you wanted to talk about. But that in our process, we try to figure out what the constraints are up front, and it's usually, time and money. And it's like, what is the constraint? Is the constraint money? If it is, let's outline that now. Like if it's 2 million, tell me it's 2 million. Exactly. And bank and know that we're going to try to build in some contingency for you. We're going to put 200,000 in a contingency line item because we know that we need that 10%. But if you're not building within a constraint, that's why we talk about pre-construction so much. It's like, if we're not involved, the architect could do exactly what you just said, is sit down room by room, figure it out. Now you're at 6,500 square feet, and then you go and bring in a builder. It's like, all right, what's this going to cost? It's like, man, well, we don't know, but let's average it at $600 a square foot. It's like, well, that's way over my budget. It's like, okay. It's like, I can't build you a shittier house.
Yeah.
But what we could do is, like, we could go back to the drawing board and figure out how we shrink the house.
Sure. Or dial back certain features. And
right.
It's the typical question that we get from people, and I don't know if this is how it is where y'all are at, but everything is, everybody talks about cost per square foot.
Everyone.
And, oh yeah, that's how houses are sold here. How much does that house sell for a foot? How much are you going to charge me to build me a house per foot? Well, I'm not charging. Like, this is what it costs, and this is what our fees are. So, our houses are so different that throwing a number out, if we were able to just have a number of what it costs us to build by the square foot, our houses wouldn't be what they are today. They're all over the place. They range. There's different features. Some houses are more complex. Some are more economical to build. Some are way more difficult to build. So, what we like to do is, like you said, discuss a top-end budget. And we're Cost Plus. We're super transparent. So we show them how we got to that number. It's not like a lump sum that they say they want to spend $2 million and mysteriously your quote ends up at like 2.1 and you just worked backwards from it, right?
Right.
So they know what we're making. They know what our fees are. And then we can bring them to other projects and say, hey, look, what you're saying you want is kind of similar to this house. Mm-hmm. It's similar to this house in these ways, but it's also different from these other projects. This project was about this much. This project was about this much. This project was about this much. So now if you want to take it a step further into something that you understand, because that's all that everybody talks about is cost per square foot, let's divide those numbers by what the square footage of those houses are for the living area and for the total square footage under roof, and find out what that average number is. Mm-hmm. And then let's try and relate that to your project and say, hey, it ought to end somewhere around here. We're not going to know for certain until we have construction documents and we price out every little nook and cranny of it. But this ought to be fairly close. If that's within your comfort level, then let's rock and roll. If it's not, let's see where we could scale back. Like, did you realize that this feature involves this much more work, and that feature is not on any other house that we're building right now that we showed you? Mm-hmm. And they might tell us, we don't even care about that feature. We didn't even know that, like, who knew that was going to be another $100,000 to have this cantilevered awning that's only 6 inches thick. Like, the engineering behind that's crazy. So when we educate them on those type of things, it really puts it into perspective.
So this podcast is brought to you by Duration Molding and Millwork. So they actually reached out. They said that their largest stocking order to date for beveled siding was recently placed by U.S. Lumber of Boston. And U.S. Lumber Boston supplies lumber yards throughout New England entirely. And this major distributor has come to realize that the combination of higher pricing and greater scarcity of cedar beveled siding, both finger jointed and solid, has led to an excellent value proposition for the duration beveled siding, not only because it's readily available, it's finger joint free, 16-foot lengths, but because it installs much more quickly than real wood and thoroughly outperforms it. Yet, it looks just like wood once it's painted.
So the distributor bought a massive order to be able to fulfill
the
other
largest
people?
stocking order to date.
Yeah, that is massive.
That's huge.
Hopefully it was a one-week turnaround.
Hopefully they use the Modern Craftsman, Modern
got
Craftsman
a
code.
discount. They probably bought in bulk. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and
So
I
it's
think
not
it's
just customers at this point; it's distributors.
No, and obviously you guys know, but they have complimentary moldings, 70% recycled content, and the availability of nearly any additional profile in short order, making it a pretty much no-brainer for those considering a painted cedar beveled siding. If you guys want to find more, durationmillwork.com, and make sure you follow them on Instagram. This podcast is brought to you by Reno Run. So located in Montreal and Toronto up in Canada, Boston, Chicago, Philly, and Washington, D.C. down here in the States. And they are your building material delivery service. Whether it's small orders or large orders, they got you covered. And honestly, we've been using it for months. And my guy, we have a new guy on staff, and he reached out the other day. He's like, hey, how do I get this Reno Run hooked up onto my phone? We got him the app on his phone. He's got some small projects going on, and he's handling all of those material deliveries through Reno Run. That stuff showing up on time on the job site. Like I said, anything from a small order, like a box of screws, to a large order, a stack of lumber or building materials.
I was just at a concert, one of the first concerts I've been to in a while last week, and the people we were there with, it was in Philly, Reno Run City, and they were going to Chicago, and I was like, yo, you are going to another city that has Reno Run it, and they looked at me like, what the heck are you talking about? I was like, oh, check it out when you're there, you'll notice it.
If they didn't see a van, then they weren't looking hard enough, because those vans are everywhere. If you guys want to get a discount on your delivery for free, it's on us, podcast.renorun.com/themodern. Let me rephrase that. If you guys want your first delivery free, visit podcast.renorun.com/Modern Craftsman. This podcast is brought to you by Rockwell, high-performance, fire-resistant, soundproofing stone wall insulation for your interior and your exterior walls, not only helping you overachieve local codes and building standards, but getting ahead of future codes. We actually were down in Nashville, so had this Contractor Coalition Summit. Rockwell actually joined us down there, and they did a presentation on the R-Class program. If you guys aren't familiar with the R-Class program, it's basically a premium partnership program for builders who demand more, and it's a community for those who take great pride in their craft and are always looking to learn about better materials and installation techniques that will ensure their homes are comfortable, beautiful, efficient, and built to last. And they're there to support, in training. They have residential building pros, samples, potential rebate savings. If you order enough material, you can get rebates back. It's a really good partnership if you are using this material on a regular basis.
Yeah, I know we had discussed, or you had kind of mentioned in passing availability with Rockwell, and I was out on Mother's Day. Yeah, Mother's Day. And I had to run to Lowe's, and I was like running by that department and peeked my head down the aisle and was like stocked with Rockwell.
I think they made like a massive jump in production.
Yeah, so at least in my area, from what it appears to me, we were pretty stocked up. So
if you guys are interested in joining that R class, visit www.rockwell.com/R class. This podcast is brought to you by Upstate Merch, quality-focused screen printing, embroidery, and graphic design shop in Whitney Point, New York. If you guys don't know who these guys are, you should by now. They handle all of our swag for the Modern Craftsman. Speaking of which, make sure you drop us a review in iTunes. We'll get you some free swag if we randomly select you on a weekly basis. But if you guys want to purchase something, hit our Instagram. We have a link in bio or our iTunes profile. We have the link there. You can hop on there and buy t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hats. But they are a highly trained staff of graphic design team and screen printers, and they'll walk through the entire process, find the right garment, printing style for your needs. Whether you're looking for embroidered hats, safety wear, polos, hoodies, giveaway shirts, or just shirts for your business, they can help you through that entire process.
Yeah, don't think, if you're a small company, there's only a few of you and you have to order a couple dozen shirts, that there's not an opportunity to work with them. I know they fulfilled very small orders for me in the past, and it's definitely, it's part of their business and they're in it for the long run, and hopefully you have a good experience and come back. But don't hesitate to reach out to them to see, they'll fulfill those small orders as well as large orders, so that it kind of runs the gamut.
Totally, and we actually just put a very small order in because we wanted to test run a few shirts and make sure that we liked them, but Dylan's always been great to work with. And if you guys want 10% off your first order, make sure you mention the Modern Craftsman podcast in your email, and their email is going to be print@upstatemerch.com. I have two questions there. So, and I think you answered it. So if I were to reach out and say, Mike, I want you to build me a house, I'm trying to figure out if you're a good fit for me. Is there, do you have a minimum? Is there a minimum square footage number that works for you? Because for us, we typically throw out, hey, we're going to be at least $600 a square foot. Is that within your range? And they might come back and be like, we were hoping 575. It's like, all right, well, 575 is within range. Like that, we could probably work with that. But if they said, oh, I was hoping for 350, they rule themselves out. Like, is there this minimum, barrier to entry? Like if someone came at you and said,
no, we try to stress a level of quality as a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to do something under a certain quality of work. We preach quality to our subs, and we've gone through all these processes. The last thing I want to do is ruin what it's taken us to get to this level of quality by willing to do something less because it doesn't match someone's budget. Like maybe we're just not a good fit in that regard.
Right.
So again, I'll do, and we've had people call us and say, hey, will you do a powder bathroom for us? I'll do it. A powder bath, a half bath.
Oh, powder room. I didn't know. I thought you said pattern bathroom. I was like, "What the heck are you?"
Y'all don't have pattern
I
baths.
still don't know what
up
a
there?
powder. I still don't know what a powder bathroom is, but
A powder room, a half bath.
yeah, powder room. I got it.
So I'll tell them, yeah, we will do that. But
You will.
I would totally. They're not going to like what it would cost for what it would cost for us to manage a job like that.
Okay.
And have supervision on the job. Our management would cost twice as much of what the materials and labor would cost. I would be upfront about them, but sure, I'm not going to turn away work. I would just be honest with them and say, look, this is, it's going to cost a lot of money to put us on site. I'm sure you could probably find somebody that's more economical, that's self-performing things and coupling supervision with some of that self-performance on certain trades. So in order
Have
for
you done
me to
any projects like that?
Not just a bathroom, but smaller kitchens where they just wanted what they wanted. So,
And they wanted to work with you, and they were like, "Yeah, we get it. Your management's going to be 30% of this project, but it's worth it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other question I have is, you said that you're disclosing like, hey, that house right there, cost X amount of dollars, or this house over here was X amount of dollars.
We'll give ballparks of that, yeah.
But are you asking, like, and this is from my own knowledge, like, are you asking the client if you can disclose what they spent on that house?
We're not giving them exact figures on it for that reason.
Yeah, okay.
But
you can give them a ballpark.
Yeah, giving them ballparks on things.
Right. Because that's, we've been faced with that. It's like, oh, well, what'd that space cost? And I'm like, I can't really tell you that. It's like, because we've done some, like, ridiculous renovations, and it's like,
Sure.
and if I tell you, hey, that renovation right there is $1,000 a square foot, that person's just going to be dissect it and be like, it doesn't make sense. You're overcharged. Like, it's like, no, you don't understand what went into it. But it's also like, that's the client's privacy.
You can, based off of a potential client, if they're not in the, if what they're talking about wanting to build isn't $1,000 a square foot,
right?
You don't need to be showing them the $1,000 square foot
Very true.
build. If they're the $500 square foot, then you need to be showing them other things that are, that be a direct resemblance of their project. Does that make sense?
Do you guys think that, it's a qualified customer, but when customers are coming to you, like, I always try and ask them for inspiration of what they're looking to do or kind of what they like, to kind of gauge like what's important to them and what if their budget and price point is accurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I just did it. Nick, I actually sent you pictures of the kitchen today, but I had somebody who got a hold of me who wanted a kitchen, and like, it was a very small space, dated. There was potential to hit their budget if it wasn't a very involved renovation. And then I asked for inspiration photos, and it was like, a job that was 5 times what their budget was. And it's like, these pictures are, a very high-end kitchen, and your budget is not in line with what these pictures are. Which for me is just like, at this point, I know that I'm not going to be able to hit. There's people that will, but I'm not going to be able to hit your numbers, and I definitely can't give you that product.
Yeah.
Which I think it helps me kind of vet customers to a certain extent, where it's like, hey, show me what's important to you, show me what details you like, and if they send you something with a specific door style or a type of window, and it's like, okay, or this type of tile, and you're like, well, that's not a very expensive or like well done install. And then I'm like, well, maybe does this customer value what I do if they're sending me inspiration pictures with like dog crap work?
Yeah.
And the argument came up, probably last year on the podcast. It's like, there's also the point of maybe that client's just not educated as to what good quality work is. And that's the difficult part. Like, it is really this human decision in our own mind. It's like, all right, they're sending me inspiration that is dog crap work, but are they looking at something else or not understanding truly what that is?
I think most
it's,
clients,
up to us as the builder.
Sorry for cutting you off.
No, go ahead.
I think most clients aren't educated as far as what high quality execution is. I think a fair amount of them can see what they associate with high quality materials, countertops,
right.
An expensive stove, an expensive light fixture. But as far as whether a tile is perfectly spaced for the right side of the room to the left side of the room, and the layout's starting and stopping with the same size tile, and it's something that we're losing sleep over, they probably don't pick up on it unless if you educate them on it.
Right.
But when clients come to us, and you can kind of gauge by what their questions are of how they approach whether they're going to be a good fit fairly quickly. So we're not the fastest builder in town, and we make that very clear. So if someone is approaching us about wanting to build, the first thing out of their mouth is, hey, we want to get this done in like 6 months, and we know that it's at least a year-long project, we're going to nip it in the bud right there and say, hey, look, we're probably not the right guys for you. We're not fast to begin with, and this is what we have on our plate right now. We only take a certain amount of projects, so we couldn't even start your project for another year or another 6 months or whatever it is. And if they start the conversation with, hey, we have this architect, and it seems like a legitimate architect, you're making a note in your head like, okay, well, at minimum, they appreciate good architecture and they're paying decent fees to this architect, so you know that they probably want quality. Hey, we have this interior designer, so you know that that is important to them as well. So more than likely, the next piece of the puzzle is that they want a good qualified builder. So I would probably ask them less questions up front to hint around and see what their budget is, to see if it seems like it could work. Then if someone calls me and is, hey, we want to get started right away, we want to be done really quickly, like, I don't really care about this, can you just like help us pick paint colors, or my wife is good at doing that, she's going to do that, that kind of throws up some flags to me that like maybe they're not the best fit for the type of projects that they do, that we do. Sorry.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many red flags, but which I didn't realize. I didn't know how to screen those customers early on. And learning at this point, I realized that 90% of the leads that I get are not my customers, and there's so many different things that kind of throw up those red flags or questions that I could ask them. What you said, Mike, is that most people don't understand what quality is, and what kind of came to my head there was then like you have to educate your customer. Then what's your angle for selling to them if you have to sit there? Like, I always thought the same thing. I had to educate my customers as to why it was this much money and why it was worth it and what was different about it. And I've kind of come to the realization that like that's not necessarily my job entirely. Like, I want people to have a pretty good understanding of that, so that I'm not like overselling a product to them, because I kind of feel as if somebody doesn't understand what quality is and then they're coming to me, that maybe they're not a good fit in general, because like I want to be doing quality work. And like, if you don't know what quality work is, or you just throwing a dart at the wall, seeing if it sticks, I feel like I want customers who are already pretty educated as to what that is, so they understand that in the first place.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily. Go ahead, Nick.
No, I was gonna say like that. But that's when I say educate the client, and I think that's where you're going, Tyler. It's like it's our job to educate prior to them giving us a call. Like the use of our marketing. It's like, hey, if you follow me, like if you follow Tyler, you know that all he cares about is quality, and he's gonna make sure it's the best product every single time. And when someone reaches out, they already know and respect that. Mike, same thing. It's like, people should be reaching out to you like, hey, I see the work that you've been doing, so and so recommended you guys. I know you guys aren't the fastest. I know that the quality is there, and and that's a good shoe in. And I find myself still like I reply to every lead. I was right before this right before my meeting before this podcast, I was replying to leads that aren't a good fit for me. Like, hey, looking to do a garage edition, $100,000 budget. I'm like, we just can't do that. Like, and I'm replying, and I'm like, hey man, I'm sorry, unfortunately we're not a good fit for this project.
Yeah, but it's about communication. That's the right thing to do, though, is to communicate that.
It's totally the right thing, and it's like, and the square foot number came up a couple times where like, hey, we're looking to build a house. I just want to know like roughly what's it cost to build a new house. And I'm like, well, with us, I would budget, more than $600 a foot for construction by itself. Mm-hmm. And because a lot of people do just want the understanding of like, are you even within my wheelhouse? Like, I'm going into this thinking I'm going to spend $300, and they're asking me like, can you build at that number? And we know we can't.
Yeah.
And it's like, for us, getting something, that's an easy, quick education as to like, hey, we are close to being your builder, or we are very much outside of being your builder.
But look, I've had customers that come to us and talk about a number, and we say, look, that's not going to work. And then we educate them on what is practical or what the reality is. And they're like, all right, let's do it.
That's what I mean. Going back to them not being educated, it's the same from a quality standpoint, but it's also from a pricing standpoint. people throw out just like square footage. I said, like, they throw out 4,000. They throw out $600 a square foot, or whatever it is. It's like they threw that number out because someone told them that that's what they spent. And when it's like, oh no, we're actually higher than that. You know, we're actually $800 a square foot, and they're like, okay, like they go into it. You know, that's the one caveat to getting to the budget question early on in a project, is that you're gonna ask the hard question of like, what's your budget, and they're either gonna refrain from answering it. They're going to answer it like feeling confident, or they're going to answer it not feeling confident, but go into it and just give you a number because you asked the question. Like, how do I shut this guy up? All right, my budget's $2 million. And when you say, well, that's not going to work, we're not a good fit, hopefully, if they answer that without that confidence, that they're like, well, to be truthful, I don't actually know what it costs. And $2 million was just this, you know, arbitrary number that I came up with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that people do also compare kind of like numbers for a certain job. Like I had a customer who wanted to renovate a space, and then like gave them my price, and they said, you know, our next door neighbors like put an addition off the back of their house for half that cost. And I'm like, yeah, like totally doable to build a new space with carpet and, you know, rugs and everything else, and like 3.25-inch baseboard and 2.25 colonial casing. But renovating a 125-year-old house, like while you're living here, and rebuilding that from the inside out is a completely different beast. And a lot of times people, they don't understand that aspect of it either.
Yeah, definitely. So when in y'all's area, when people are talking about price per square foot, are they using, what's the multiplier on that? Is it the living square footage? Is it the total square footage under roof? That would be including garages and porches, and what are they?
We typically go off living, like basically whatever, like how the realtors would market the house.
Yeah.
Just so everyone's talking about the same like amount of square footage.
Yeah. So I like to talk about the square footage under roof, because while, you know, garage isn't as expensive as a kitchen to build, and I don't know what y'all are doing up there, but down here, porches, there's huge porches and balconies and big outdoor living spaces with, you know, just as much appliances in an outdoor kitchen as there is in a normal kitchen of a house. So if you don't capture that square footage to throw out these crude estimates, I just, you know, one house could be, it could just be crazy. You know, the comparison between a home that doesn't have hardly any porches or garage space, one might have a 6-car garage, like it still costs something to build that.
Right.
The larger the house, fairly often the lower cost per square foot it is to build that house.
Yeah,
there's more square foot to absorb, you know, the higher ticket items like kitchens and baths and outdoor kitchens,
and that's, I mean, it's only a conversation for us where it's like once we gauge, like, are we in line with where you want it to be budget wise, that number is nothing. Yeah. That number was simply the understanding of like what we're trending for the average on our projects. If that's a comfortable number to be around, then we go into pre-construction and working through a design. And you know, most of the time they start designing something that's more money.
Yeah.
And you know, the other thing I wanted to add to this is, like, you know, I think the architect's role, you know, we were talking about this I think last week, but the architect's role, like them mentioning like what their projects cost per square foot is so hurtful to our side, because they designed that project 3 years ago.
No, it's bullshit.
And well, but even if they're pulling shit out of their ass, like they designed the project 3 years ago, and they're using that as historic data based on the fact like what the job ended up costing, and it's like they're not taking into consideration that everything gets more expensive every single year. And it's oftentimes it's like, oh yeah, this, we built a similar house like this for, $500 a square foot. And it's like, yeah, I know, but that was 3 years ago.
And it was a shitty builder. And like,
well, even like leaving that part out, it's just like, again, this is why, not to make this all about pre-construction, but it's like, that's why it's so important to be for us to be involved early, is that, I don't want the architect to feel the pressure from the client to answer pricing questions, because I'm not gonna answer questions that are outside of my scope. Like if there's an architect on board and there's a question specific to the architect, why would I step in the way of that?
I've had projects before that we send them to the architect, or they say, this is our architect, and we're not involved. And they say, hey, we got our construction documents, come to the last meeting. And we come to the last meeting and the client says, ask the architect, are we still on budget? And I'm like a deer in headlights, like, what are you talking about? Oh, well, we talked to the architect about a budget. And I'm like, all right, well, what is it? And you hear it and you're just like, oh my gosh. I ended up buying the land from the people because they're like, we're not going to build a house. We have no use. Do you want to buy this lot from us? I'm like, sure.
Because it was so over budget.
It wasn't even worth pricing. It was so unrealistic. Yeah. This is years ago. But if we had been involved in the beginning of it, we could have at least heard that conversation and said, look, this isn't doable. We can't hold a gun to their head and force them to like stick to this budget that they set in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But if we're at least in on the conversations, we can say, hey, nowhere in your budget is a lazy river that flows through your house to get you from your bedroom to your kitchen. If you want to add that, we'll do it. I'll dig it with a spoon if you want us to, but it's not in your budget. They have to make the conscious decision then to tell the architect, move forward with putting a lazy river through the middle of our house, right?
Mike, do you price jobs that come, I guess it would probably depend on the architect, but are you typically, like, if somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, we have plans, will you just price this job for us?
Mm-mm.
No.
No.
Which I kind of figured you were going to say that, but why?
It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time, and I have many clients that we're working for that we were selected as the builder on their project in order for us to begin pricing. So it wouldn't be fair to them to just take ourselves away from their projects and supervising their projects to price out a job for somebody else that maybe is going to hire us, maybe not going to hire us, maybe going to send it to 5 guys to bid. When a client calls us and asks us to build the house, one of the first things that we explain is that we don't competitively bid against other contractors. So we want you to come to our job sites, be happy with what you see there. I'll toss you my cell phone. You can call any client that we're working for, any client that we have worked for, see what their experience was with us. You can meet our team, project managers. You can come meet our in-house labor, whatever. You guys can feel 100% comfortable with us. But we need to know that if this house gets built, we're the guy building the house. And that way we can put 100% of our time into working with you and pricing the house out, because there is a good chance that, like we've been talking for the last 45 minutes, that things can go over budget during the design phase. And if we know that you're committed to us, we're committed to you, and we're going to put in the time to help you value engineer the project, to reel it back in if that's what's needed to do. But I'm not going to do all of that if there's 5 other guys that don't have the same ethics, don't have the same level of quality, don't have the same commitment as me, that are also pricing the job, and they just want to make their number look like the lowest number on a piece of paper to get the job. We know that we're not going to be the cheapest. We're not going to be the fastest. We might not be the most expensive, but I'm confident that we can do the best job.
You know, I had that conversation with you a couple years ago now where you were like, just tell people that you don't competitively bid jobs. And it was like the simplest thing ever. And it was kind of my mindset, but I just never heard it put so clearly and like so tersely where it's like it made perfect sense to me. And it's something that I say all the time now. And it for me was a huge game changer because it's very straight, it's very direct, it's to the point. I can explain it in a way that doesn't come off rude. If people have questions about it, obviously you can elaborate on it, but it just for what I'm trying to do and the scale that I am, it made perfect sense to me where it's just like I have so many customers who are willing to just come to me that it doesn't really make that much sense for me. It's not that it might not be a great project. It's not that it might not be with great people. It's just that I don't prefer to work that way. And I have customers who are willing to work with me the way that I do. And that's just what I want to do. And I've kind of established myself to be able to do that. And it's something that I really like stand by at this point in my career, which for me it's amazing to be able to do.
I mean, are you going to is anybody going to fully commit themselves to anything if they don't have some like reassurances that
No.
Right? So why would I go throw myself out there 110% if my information that I'm going to disclose to you is potentially going to be given to another builder and just say, hey, this is what Telich said he would do. Here's his numbers. You know, we saw that he was using this person to do this work. Get them to do it on our project too. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to.
You know, like, because I feel like, Tyler, we've talked about not competitively bidding. Mike, you and I have talked about it. We all, and we preach it too. And like, I talk constantly about how, no, we get paid for pre-construction, but there's always the caveat that there's projects that come on my table and I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll bid that. And it's like, I look at it and it's like, that's a really good architect. And, you know, we just had one come across our table just the other day and I was like, all right, who were the two other builders looking at it? He didn't disclose. It took me all of like 2 phone calls to find out, and I'm like, okay, those are 2 builders that the fact that I'm invited to the table with these 2 guys, like they're the upper echelon. So now I'm sitting here, I'm like, I want this job. I want to prove that I can play with the big boys and I can come in here and win this job. And I've probably done that a handful of times in the last few years, and not one of those jobs have been awarded to me.
Do you know what it seems like to me? It seems like if you had, 6 girls that you were considered dating.
This is a TV show.
Yeah.
And 2 of them said, yeah, like, I'll just be exclusive to you. And the other 4 said, like, I may date other guys at the same time. Like, why would you go with the 4 girls who are going to go and see other people? Where it's like, I'd rather, like, I have 2 girls right here
you're right.
that are going to say that they're just going to hang out and just see me. Why am I going to entertain these other 4 who, like, I may or may not have a chance with?
I mean,
maybe
I'm not going to discuss
like the ones
that on podcast, but there could be some pros to the other 4.
But like the ones a smoke show, yeah, like maybe I land that one chick, but like maybe she's walking around with 3 other dudes at the same time.
You're like, the argument is fair, and for me, I'm saying it out loud because I constantly have that excuse as like, this job's different. I want to bid it because like this is an opportunity for us to be in a totally different stratosphere of projects, and I do it, and it's like we just did it again with 2 other bigger builders, and we didn't get the job. They were like, they loved you, blah blah blah, but they have a previous relationship with this one, so they decided to go with them. And I'm like, I keep getting invited to this table, but the table's not set for me.
Yeah.
I'm just, there's an empty seat and they're like, we got to fill it with someone, fill it with Nick.
I've told so many people that we are not interested because they're wanting a competitive bid.
But what if they say, Mike, like, hey, Mike, totally respect that, man. This isn't designed to be competitive. They're just trying to weigh their options with, you know, 3 of the best builders in all of Baton Rouge.
Then I would say, come to my job sites, talk to some of our clients, come meet my team. What do we need to gain your confidence? But still, I'm not interested in disclosing a bunch of information that could potentially be used against me if you pick another builder.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that. I want to work for you, but this many people have done it this way with us. Talk to them about the experience and then let us know. I've had people become irate with me that they think that me telling them that I'm not going to competitively bid is just insane, like curse at me that why I wouldn't do that, that you're a contractor. That's what you're supposed to do. That's how you get jobs by pricing stuff. I'm like, so you just think that we can scan your plans into a computer and it just spits out a price? It takes us months sometimes to price these jobs. I can't do that. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's
literally irate with me, cuss me out. Like, this is, I can't believe that you would not do that.
You just want to ask them, like, yeah. You just want to ask them, like, do you want our product or do you not want our product? And I think, you know, if they have a handful of people that they're interviewing, the goal would be that it's of a similar quality, of a similar price point. And I think it comes down to just being like, hey, we want to use you for the job. How do we make this happen? Like, I just had a designer reach out to me, and she's like, I've been waiting for a project to come across my plate that we could use you. I think this is the perfect opportunity. Like, would love to get on board with you. And that's the type of stuff that gets me excited, because now somebody's coming to me and they want to try and figure out, and like, I'm completely willing to work with them. I'll go look at the job, and I may not get the job, but like, at least there's good faith there where they're like, hey, hoping to make this happen with you. But when another designer calls and we're just like, hey, like, here's some plans, can you look at these and price this for us? Maybe, you know, we're going to meet at the job site next week. Like, I probably won't be very likely to do that, because that's just not exciting for me. And that maybe there's lost opportunity costs, but I think that I don't need that much work to sustain, and I'm okay with that. And it's probably similar, you know, obviously, Mike, you do bigger projects, but you're not doing a ton of them, where it doesn't make that much sense for me. I feel like I'm taking time away from my actual projects, from my family, to entertain these leads that, like, I don't want or need anyway.
I mean, I need to work. That's our business. So it's important to follow leads, and, you know, we get referrals from clients, and I'm very grateful for those. Sometimes they're a good fit, sometimes they're not a good fit. More times than not, they're a good fit because we've worked for the client in the past, and they know what our process is going to be. So they've prepped their friend on it. This is what he does. You know, he's not the cheapest guy, he's not the fastest guy, he's fair. But there's also, you know, there's designers and there's architects that we work with that, you know, will ask us to look at something, and I'll look at it a little further and more in depth than I would if it was someone that I didn't have confidence that they were bringing a project that was a good fit for us. You know, we have realtors that we work with that will say, hey, I've got a client that wants to buy this house. Could you at least come and just look and give us your thoughts on it? Sure, I'll come do that, because I know that they know what our process is and that it's not going to be a bullshit project that they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, and that's, and like, when you say you'll look at it, you're not spending the months on it. You're just you're understanding what it is, and you might verbally give them, hey, this is how
you're going to spend $1 million here at least to do this. If they say,
like,
oh my God, like, that's crazy, then At
Move
least
on.
we save them from buying this house that they're going to potentially spend $1 million on.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, and even for me, like talking about it out loud here, is that, you know, the fact that I continue to take on opportunities that I think are gonna end up different. Where it's like, you know what, I'll bid this one because it's a good opportunity, and at the end of the day, there was no opportunity.
Yeah.
It what like, and I'm doing it for ego. You know, like, to be totally honest with myself, it's like I'm doing it because I wanna sit at this table thinking I have this shot, where it's like I don't have the shot. And it's like, and if I had went in there with the attitude of, which I typically would do on a normal job, is like, hey, we don't competitively bid, but I'm happy to explain our process and why I think that we would be a good fit for this project. But if you're going to price with other people, it just doesn't make sense for us, because we're not going to, you know, and I say the same thing, Mike. It's like, we're not going to put the amount of effort it takes to put together a proposal. I'll tell you right now, that house, looking at the drawings for an hour, you're $2 to $3 million, and like, there you go. Like, that's my estimate. And beyond that, you know, we need to work together, because this is gonna, like you said, it's gonna take weeks, if not months, to price this. And you know, and our pricing practice is thorough, extremely thorough. Everything is detailed line by line, and everything is, and it's, you know, it's supposed to be, because we want to put that amount of work in to show you that, hey, we're advocating for this project. We've done all this work to set this project up for success, and now, you know, we're at a point where we've done enough of the due diligence that we know exactly close to what this project is going to cost.
Yeah. I can relate to, you know, feeling pumped up about having an opportunity in front of you that I've questioned, man, should I just, but I've learned, like, no. And what's helped me stick to my guns about that is that we're working for a handful of clients at any given time that believed in us and believed in our process. And by me deviating from that would be like a slap in the face to them. So if history repeats and proves itself like it normally does, if I bend the rules and bid this job for these people, I'm most likely not going to get it. Like, when people say, oh, well, we're competitively bid, we're just not going to give it to the cheapest guy. That's true like 5% of the time. 95% of the time, when you're bidding a job out, bullshit. You're giving it to the cheapest guy. That's why you're sending it out to bid.
Well,
like,
he was the
you're
cheapest,
not getting as detailed as how's Builder A gonna is Builder A gonna pocket screw their miters? Is Builder B gonna pocket screw their miters? Like, they don't care about that. They're looking at what is the price. So if I took that opportunity to bid that job and don't get it, that's taking time out of my day that I could be giving extra time to clients that believed in us and believed in our process. And I would much rather do that. I would rather take care of clients that really appreciate what we're doing and know that we're doing a good job and trust us.
So what about on the flip side, Mike? You sell this client on working with you. What about your trades? You know, we all have more than one painter or one plumber. Like, what's the relationship there? Because before you answer that, that's where I think one of the biggest issues is with partners and subcontractors and trades, is that, you know, a lot of guys, I'm using air quotes, or a lot of builders or luxury home builders, again, air quotes, and they're going in, they're selling at the high price point. They've got the marketing dialed in, and then they sell it like, we're super expensive, we're slow, but you're going to get the best quality. They sell it, and then they turn around and they bid it out amongst trades.
And they send a B
and
team.
Try to get, and then get, like, yeah, who can be the cheapest painter? It's like, all right, now my bottom line is just going up and up and up, and it's like, you just sold the best quality. Wouldn't you want to turn around and then afford to pay the best quality guys? Like, what is that process like? You get this job, how are you then turning that over to your trades? Like, what does that conversation look like? And are you pricing it with multiple trades?
Mm-mm. As of recently,
just because no one's looking at you because this is a podcast, he shook his head no.
Yeah.
What do you
No one
mean?
can see you. Well, no one can see you.
Oh yeah.
You shook your head.
I don't.
I'm just giving you.
I don't have 2 plumbers. I don't have 3 drywall guys. I don't have 6 painters. I have a cabinet guy. I've got a trim carpenter. I've got a guy that does our foundations. I've got a framer. We have some. If we get in a bind scheduling wise, we have other subs that we've worked with that we will occasionally use. So that we can keep our clients' projects moving, but it's not the B team. It's not.
It's an A
sending
substitute.
out. Yeah, it's the quality is the same, and the management on our end is going to be the same. Recently, with some of the supply chain stuff, price increases, we've took it upon ourselves to price things out if we're getting revised numbers back that are higher than budget. And it's cost plus. We're not bound to do that, but look, I want to bring value to the table for my client as well. So if we have this type of molding that was X amount of dollars and now's Y, but we could get something made from a different vendor and it's a better price, and we vetted them and we feel that the quality of that molding is going to be the same or better, but the price is there and it's a better price. It might take us a little bit more time to facilitate this order for this trim because it's out of town or whatever. I don't mind doing that, and we have done that recently. We've had some trades that have gone up on their stuff, and we've fought for our clients. It's all about being fair with things, right? I don't want my clients to feel like they're getting taken advantage of, and I don't want my subs or vendors to feel like they're getting taken care of or taken advantage of. And we're in the middle, basically trying to mediate and make sure that everybody gets treated fairly and reasonably, but most of all that the quality of the house is not changing.
Right. Do you like that second tier, right? Like the second A's, what is that a relationship that you are continuing to foster, or do they know like, hey, Mike's got his guys, but when he gets in a bind, he calls us? And do you think it matters?
No, I don't think it matters as long as you're like straightforward about things.
Yeah.
Right?
Because I think that's the issue in
I don't want to
industry.
dangle. If I'm sending my plumbing work out to bid to 3 plumbers,
yep,
I'm doing exactly what I told the guy a week ago that called me and asked me to bid his plan against 5 builders, and then he cussed me out and told me that I was insane. I'd be doing the same thing. So it's all about, it's not just an open checkbook, but it's developing a level of trust and expectations with the subs and with the vendors that they know what you want. They know, just because it's not on the plans to do X, Y, and Z, we know that Mike's going to ask us to do that or do it this way. Or we know that Mike's going to come and ask us to do half of it and then leave for 2 weeks so that he can double check everything, and then he's going to let us come back and do the last half. That it's going to be a slower process. So if people are willing to work with that and work for me to do that type of stuff, those extra things that make our house special, again, it's not an open checkbook. They don't just send me a price and say it's going to be $100,000 to do the plumbing on this house. We're comparing it to other houses that we've done in the past and going, okay, well, hey, the last house that was this size was $90,000. Why is that? And it's not a conversation that's, trying to point a finger at them. It's just a simple question. And they say, well, hey, this house has, this many more fixtures, this many more wall-mounted faucets. Those are more difficult for us to install, so that we understand, and then we can explain it to our client as well, why something costs what it costs.
Right. I mean, I think that, and like you said, it's a conversation. Like, you can question the cost with your trades, but it's just a matter of making sure that you understand it. We had a trade recently tell us that, hey, there's going to be an increase to our proposal that we gave you back in the fall that we committed to. Like, hey, we're committed. I want you on the schedule. Let's move forward. Whatever. Like, here's our contract. And it's like, hey, we're going to be issuing an increase to that proposal of X percentage due to inflation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, just like give me some backup on that. Like,
sure.
Just walk me through it. Like, is it inflation because your fuel went up and you have 6 trucks? Is it inflation because your groceries at home went up? Are you paying your guys more? Like, are you paying? Did everyone get a raise because you're afraid that they're gonna jump ship and go work for someone else? Like, just give me something that I can grab onto. So if I'm questioned about it, like you said, it's not an open checkbook. I can't just say, hey, by the way, this trade came in 11% higher or whatever the case may be. It's hey, here's a conversation. This is where we're at. This is the reason for the increase. Because when it's just like when someone comes to me and just says, yeah, it's more money. It's like, well, why is it more money? My client's going to ask me the same thing. They're not just going to be like, I can't just say, hey, it's more money. They're not just going to say, okay. At the end of the day, they're probably going to be fine with it. But only if I walk into that conversation with an explanation as to why.
Exactly.
Like, hey, this is what's going on. This is why it's going to be more money. Blah blah blah. Yeah, when you have that, it's like it's entering a conversation. It's entering that conversation with confidence. Rather than with the tail between your legs. It's like, yeah, it's just more money because the inflation. It's like, well,
yeah, everybody says
how is
that.
inflation?
That's the thing.
Yeah. Right, but how is
gas
inflation?
prices are so high. Like, dude, you have 2 trucks.
Right.
And
you live a mile down the street.
It doesn't matter if you live 100 miles. It's $100,000 job. Like,
right.
How much is it? I'll give you an extra $1,000 for gas then. How about that? Because I guarantee you're not going to have anywhere even close to $1,000 of gas.
Exactly.
Getting to and from, and then they realize, I'm like, well, did your labor go up? Well, no. Okay, well, show me where the materials went up and help me understand what portion of the job is labor and what portion of the job is materials.
Right.
It's worth having those conversations with them about it, because I know firsthand that if they're bringing something to me about a price increase and I balk at it and just say no, that the quality is going to get taken out of what they're doing. They're going to figure out a way to save that money to offset what their cost increase is. And I don't want that to happen. I want my client to still have a high quality job. So what we've done is just give us some backup information. I get emails all the time from the plumbing warehouse that say, Delta and Kohler and blah, 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 they're issuing another 10% price increase at the, 1st of June. Georgia Pacific has said that they're doing this. And we have that documentation to be able to show and say, look, this is why this is going to cost more to do. The last thing I want to do is not bring it up and, do lower quality work or substitute materials without us knowing, and then it just becomes a bigger problem later on down the line.
And that's the issue. Like, even from a GC or builder, it's like when they're squeezed on price, that they find another way to make up that money that they're going to lose. But what you said a minute ago, that everyone says that's like the excuse now. Inflation. It's like, but I need to understand how inflation has impacted you. And if if you're paying your guys more, that's a straight up, like, good. Like, then everyone got a raise and everyone's making a little bit more money, as they should. Like, there has to be something to grab onto. It's the same thing with these lead times. It's like, oh yeah, the job's delayed because windows are 24 weeks. It's like, then why didn't you order them 24 weeks ago?
Yeah, why didn't you tell us that they were 24 weeks?
Right. It's like everyone's using these excuses. And listen, before anyone jumps down my throat saying, well, not everything is, clear as day, and I ordered something that was 5 weeks and it's been 15. Like, trust me, I've waited for a panel cover, an electric panel cover, for 9 months now, and it just showed up today. It's sitting in my office to the left of me. But it's like, I get it. Like, there's things that you can't control, but everyone is jumping on the train of, here's my opportunity for an excuse. Here's why I can blame on the fact that I'm delayed. It's like, dude, I can't, couldn't get material. It's like, when did you try to order it? What do you mean? I'm like, when did you try ordering that material? Well, last week. It's like, okay. So we're in a national crisis here with getting material, and instead of being proactive, you just decided, hey, business as usual. I'm just going to order it a week before I need it. It's like, this isn't how we operate anymore. And it starts with us as the builder, and obviously it trickles down to the trades. And it's like, we're asking all these questions. It's like, we're starting jobs. It's like, hey, how long is the lead time for recessed lights? It's like, I don't know yet. You're putting a foundation in the ground. It's like, can you get that for me?
Yeah.
Because I'm putting that on the schedule that by that date, they need to be ordered.
Oh, man, I've got a warehouse full of appliances.
I want to start a storage facility because everyone's buying up storage units to store this stuff.
Oh, man, we've just light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, paint.
I was just looking on my email now. Since October 7th, I've been waiting on a replacement pot filler.
October.
It's like,
yeah,
I mean,
man.
I put it in. I put a temp sink. I put a temp sink fixture in because, like, I know. Because,
go to a machine shop, have one made.
Yeah. That's what I was like. I could make this by the time. So the sink fixture went, and it's like a weird finish with the pot filler, and it's gone like a couple times. So I'm like, we're not putting that same fixture in. You have to pick a new one, and they discontinued the finish. So it's like now I have to replace the sink fixture and the pot filler. And finally, I was like, I'll put a temporary sink fixture in. Thank God I did, because they'd be without a sink fixture since October now. Yeah. Still waiting on their pot filler. I mean, the pot filler works. It just doesn't match. But I mean, I talked to you, Nick, the other day, even about drawer glides right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're telling you 4 to 6 months to get drawer glides, which is just insane. Like, that's something that I can't make sense of that.
Where that should be we're back up on a tip.
That should be
but
something that a machine makes,
right,
and just can run 24/7.
I forget like Bloom is the biggest contributor to the shortage right now. So, and that was like an excuse. Like, that was one of the excuses everyone was using. It's like, yeah, we can't finish these cabinets. It's like, find another resource.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we were doing the same thing, and then we were like, all right, we threw something on Instagram. It was like, hey, what's everyone using for drawer slides since you can't get Bloom? And they're like, oh, I'm using Grass. Oh, I forget the other one. But there was another one that everyone's like, hey, these ones are kind of a lower quality model, but they actually work really well, and we've had a lot of good luck with them. And you can get you literally buy them off the shelf. Yeah, the Bloom thing. I don't know what happened to them, but it was like we used to buy the upgraded versions of the slides, and that
you can adjust the clips.
Exactly.
Am I losing it?
I think that. No, you're good. I think they're called the tandems or whatnot.
Yeah, but tandem Blue Motion, and then they also have the clips that have 4-way adjustability or 6.
So we were always using those because we were in the shop one day and Ken had set up 2 side by side, and I shut the drawer on the tandems. I'm like, dude, that feels so much better. Let's just make that a standard. And then those ones, they basically were telling us, oh, we're not even manufacturing those right now. It's like, what do you mean you're not manufacturing those? It's like, we're just doing the normal ones. And it was just like, dude, and now I think Ken has ordered so many that UPS trucks just stop by and just drop off boxes and boxes of them at random times. No rhyme or reason.
Sell me some drawer guides, man.
You can get.
I think. Hey, can we have any for sale? I'll see if we have any surplus.
I need backup documentation on the cost of those.
Trust me,
ordered
I
some.
definitely have that.
I ordered some, and like I ended up getting a box, and the guy was like, "How the heck did you get these?" I was like, "I don't know." He just said he could get me a box of them. He's like, "These are like gold right now," and apparently, I don't even think did you say this, Nick? They're not making the 12-inch ones.
I don't that
Like I'm pretty sure that like 12-inch is not in production
So-
because they can't keep up with like the normal sizes
Yeah,
or
I
something
I feel
crazy.
like it was either 12s or 18 something that we couldn't get.
Yeah,
we
I
just had
think
a
it's
bunch
12s
of
that they're
dovetail
just
drawer
not
boxes sitting
making.
around.
and now it's like 21s or like because those are the most common. They're trying to pump those out. But
Yeah.
it's we got to a point. I said just order a pallet, just order a pallet of them, and when it shows up, it shows up.
Dude, order 2 and sell one.
We should. But the thing is that we don't know when they show up.
Yeah.
And he's sitting. I'm gonna ask him right now, Ken. He's got his headphones in. Hey, do we
Look at that
have
snap.
all of the drawer glides
Yeah.
that we've
he
ever
doesn't
ordered,
care.
or are we still waiting on more? They're still they're still coming in, and it's like we've been for over a year, right? Since last June, and they're just trickling in like 6 boxes at a time.
Yeah.
Do we have any to sell? Mike Telich wants some. 60? No, we gotta hold on to those things.
The price
Any
is just
12-inch?
going up.
Yeah, getting taxed.
No 12s.
Yours are you using 5/8 drawer boxes?
Yeah, they're 5/8.
Yeah, I'm using 1/2 inch. I don't have the budget you guys do.
But they're the same slide.
I think the sizing's just different. It's different. I feel like. I don't know if they're the same slide.
It's the same slide. Yeah. It just gets it just gets closer to the edge.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like when you measure it, it's different. They ask you.
The box is
The
different.
box is
Yeah.
different.
The
Yeah.
slides are the same. Well, we're live trading Bloom slides right now.
Well, yeah, because basically, if I have my boxes ordered, I can't switch the size of the drawer box at this point. Like if I want it, the box. Wait, what did you just say?
The slides are the same. So if you when you
Yeah,
order
so the box size would be different.
yeah, the box size would be different. But
The
I'm not.
box size would be different if it was 5/8 to 1/2 inch.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
it would be the same.
it would be the same
Yeah.
slide and location for the slide. You guys call them glides. I call them slides.
I think technically they're called glides, even though I like to call them slides.
I feel like we need to look this up.
Bloom is definitely glides. I can confirm that in my mental locker.
We
I'm
manufacture things as drawer runners.
I'm thinking about starting to do the wooden triangle
Oh yeah.
in the bottom of the drawers.
Dude, they lasted forever.
And yeah, you just like wax them up every now and then.
Man,
My kid's one dresser has them, Tilly's dresser, and she always, like, when she wants to pick an outfit out, she just pulls the whole thing out because they don't have stops, and like she can't get them back in by herself, so she's always in there like banging the drawer around trying to get it to lock back into the triangle.
that's good stuff.
It's like, all right, Tilly, just leave it. Look at it.
They're
Because you wanted your Elsa underwear.
I know. On Bloom's website, they are concealed runners.
Runners. None of us were correct.
Yeah. I'm never
I
gonna
don't
call
believe.
them a
I
runner.
don't believe you now.
Well, I'm just.
If you look up on their website, like what sort of options that you can order, I'm pretty sure that they're glides.
I'm Bloom products and then Tandem. So Tandem, concealed runner made in the USA with domestic and European components. Go down to Blue Motion. I'll click on Blue
Runner
Motion.
Systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
I'm saying wood guides on everything, man.
Same.
You can control it.
I had a guy build our kitchen island for the new house, and I wanted it to look like a piece of furniture. And it was made to look like a table that is like this historic Louisiana antique that came out of the Ursulines convent. And it has a double-sided drawer, so the drawer can slide to the front or back of this like slender
Yep.
table, and it's all like wooden drawer slides, and then he mortised a brass plate in a little tiny ball catch so that like you could at least retain the drawer partially, so it takes a little bit of pressure to pull the drawer out, so my kids aren't constantly pulling the kitchen island drawers out. But it's pretty cool.
And it operates fine.
It's awesome.
Yeah. We've just
Maybe we should go. Maybe we should go that. Just bring it back.
I'm down with
Be
that.
like, listen, this is like the new thing.
Yeah.
Slow, like soft close. That's nobody wants that anymore.
no.
Oh, man. Single pane windows.
This is traditional. So
Bring
we're
it-
going.
bring
Yeah.
it.
So that's the headache and I mean even MDF and everything else right now is super hard to get. I
It's-
heard drywall is going to be an issue soon.
I talked to somebody in Atlanta that said concrete to pour a foundation, they have a 5 to 6 week lead time to schedule
What?
a foundation. That's what he told me. That they're on allocation for powdered cement, the concrete companies, and they can they're only allocated a certain amount each day, so they could only pour X amount of yards.
Yeah.
And that, like, with all these Amazon facilities popping up everywhere, that they're not allocating their supply to home builders unless if they, build a lot of
Scheduled
homes
6 weeks, yeah.
or if they schedule 6 weeks out.
Wow.
We're not having that experience here. I mean, I used to be able to call and say, hey, something popped up, I want to pour tomorrow. Can we do that? And we could most likely get one of the concrete companies in town to say, yeah.
Right.
Now we know you got to be, 3-4 days potentially.
Going back, it's like this is the issue is that everyone now has an excuse as to why they can't deliver on something, and whether it's all of these product delays, are they're not all dealing with the same issue. Some of it's manufacturing, some of it's labor force. I heard plywood veneers and like finished veneers and things like that were going to be an issue because they're trapped on a train up in Canada because they changed
Road trip.
I know, but it's like so, and it's like some of these lumber companies, they have plenty of material, they can't get it out of their yard fast enough, and it's like,
man.
and
Drive
this
a
is the
truck,
thing, it's like, then the whole trucker thing.
That's a bunch of bullshit too.
But that's what I mean. My point is that there's so many opportunities for excuse now that it's like it's becoming normal to not deliver on your promise, which is so frustrating. And it's like,
horrible.
and it's like even from an individual standpoint, where it's like, I'll sit down with our team, and it's like they'll be like, yeah, I don't think that we're gonna be able to do this in that amount of time. I'm like, okay, well, you can tell me that when you have a way that we could do this in this amount of time. Don't I don't want us to be in this mindset of like we can't do that, we can't do this. It's like, come to me and say we can't do this unless we change this or did this or had this option. Where it's like, hey, we can't trim this house out in 4 weeks. It's like, okay, what would you need to trim out that house in 4 weeks? Well, we'd need like 16 guys. It's like, so we can trim the house out in 4 weeks if we had 16 guys. It's like, why aren't we coming? We need to be more solution oriented. Where it's like, you got to come to the table with a solution. And it's like, yeah, I can't get bloom slides. Okay, what's my options? Well, there's other manufacturers. Okay, which one can you get the fastest? And which ones are going to be the best? Order every slide and figure out which one you can get the fastest and which one works the best.
It's such a
make
pain in the
decision.
butt switching hardware though, where you're like all
Totally.
set up. I feel,
course.
dude, have you ever looked up those spec sheets for Bloom, where it's like, how far back do I have to set this in the cabinet from like if it's frameless, if it's got a face frame, like
But
how thick is your drawer slab, and like how far back you're setting. Dude, that's a nightmare.
Yeah,
it's
and
like I
that-
just want to use the same one every single time because it takes you 3 hours to read through the paperwork.
Of course, and that's why people immediately go to, I can't do that.
Yeah.
It's like, you can, it's just a pain in the ass.
But what would you do if they're like, yeah, there's no more drywall? I mean, I know you guys use green board or blue board or whatever the heck it's called, but like,
if there was no more gyp, and
yeah,
we would do wood paneling or wood lath or wire lath. Like I don't know. You would adapt.
Adapt. That's it.
You have to. It's like, oh, sorry, I can't finish
paneling.
I can't finish. Not paneling, but you know what I mean, right? Like,
there's a solution.
Dude,
for
we're doing it.
It might cost more.
We're doing a house right now where it's like the entire living room is all paneling, and you could just drywall it and add the paneling on and paint it all one color, but we're not going to do that. We're going to end up putting MDF, or actually a combo core, so it's an MDF face plywood over the whole wall, and then we'll go on top of that with our paneling. So it's a flatter surface. It's like, all right, well, maybe that room gets, a paintable wood, or maybe it's tongue and groove or shiplap, or it's just maybe it's plywood, maybe it's CDX plywood, and now you celebrate the industrial look of it.
Tile board.
But the thing is, it's like that. That's a great example, Tyler, where it's like that would be a huge disruptor. It's like there's no more gyp. There's no drywall. There's no blue board. How are you going to finish this house?
Yeah, but if that comes up and it's like a risk and someone brings it to our attention, the first thing I'm doing is organizing the shit out of our warehouse and going buy $50,000 worth of drywall. Because I know that I have 3 projects that are going to need to be drywalled in the next 6 months.
Right.
And
you get those figured out, and then you find a solution for the next.
Yeah.
You design around it.
Yeah. The
you could
bigger
always just
problem.
call Reno run.
Meep meep.
The bigger
What's
problem.
the bigger
is
problem?
Scheduling is dialed in as your schedule can be, and as organized as you can be. We don't have the luxury of the subs only working for us. So the subs that do work for us, we are a huge part of, their workload. And some of them, like our carpenters typically only work for us. They might have one other builder to do some small things for. But we can schedule a plumber 4 months out. And we can update him on how things are going to change with our schedule and keep him in the loop. But if he's working for other guys that aren't doing that and they have to hit a deadline for something, then we get pushed back. That's been the major killer, is that, everybody else that's in the industry is not willing to step up and be as organized as we're trying to be.
Right.
And then the other issue that I would assume, which I've ran into on a small scale, but just being that everyone is busy people are so concerned to get to the next job, that it's like,
but oftentimes,
listen,
good.
I want you to, like, this is the level that we need to hit here, and everyone's so busy and they're ready to get to the next job and get that other guy or girl off their back that, like, they're not doing the level of work that they did pre-boom, or kind of with your relationship with them before, which is tough.
We'll get that on the next trip. Well, we're going to get just enough done to get you off our back so that we can get on to the next person down the road because we're late to be on their job too. And then it's just this constant, like, battle. Nothing can get done. Oh, well, we got to wait for this person to do that. You really don't have to wait for that person to get this done.
Right. It's just, that's the way you want it to go. And
we've been coming.
It's not going the way you want.
We've been going through our schedules and trying to drill down on where typically we call the plumber and, hey, it's time for you to install all the fixtures. All the floors in the house are done. You can come to your toilets. The countertops are in. You can hook up your sinks, put your faucets in, trim out your tubs, trim out your showers. And, that's a couple-day trip for them to come and do. Now, we might have all of the wall tile done for all the tubs and showers, and we might not have countertops in yet, and we might have all the tile floors in, but not wood floors. And if it's something that is not going to make a trip that is only a half day for the plumber, if it's something that looks like it's going to be a full day. It might not be 3 consecutive days of work. We're going to call them and schedule them and say, hey, we're ready for you to come do A, F, and D out of this schedule. And the rest of the items you're going to get, on 2 other days closer to the end of the project. But that's the only way that we can keep crossing things off the list. And most of our subs have had a good response about doing that, as long as we're like respectful of their time. That's not like come out and hook up just one toilet so we can feel like we're crossing something off of a list of 20. It's come out and install 5 toilets and this and this and this, and that's one way that we're trying to combat some of this craziness.
Yeah, I mean, customers have to understand that as well, being that everyone is juggling stuff, that it may not make sense to get a plumber, an electrician, the painter out to spend an hour on something where they could wait until later on and come spend a half day or a full day. In your world where it's cost plus, that's probably pretty understandable for customers. I feel like I run into it on my end or if somebody lump sum bids something where it's like I can't get them out 6-7 times to come do stuff, where like it's costing them money, it's costing me money. Like I just had that conversation with my electrician. He's like, it's not the case with you. He's like, you're good, but I have other guys who like don't understand the full capacity of the scope or the design, and then we're back 2, 3, 4 more times, and now I'm losing money. Mm-hmm. Where your whole goal for your sub should be to make their life as easy as possible, so they don't have to think, they can show up and just do their job and make money. And now you're like, you're complicating their lives, you're making it harder, your customers aren't happy, and then it's like the quality of work's going to go down too.
But that's even like,
what are you doing, blowing leaves over there, Mike?
5 acres, and they're blowing the leaves behind them.
Can you hear it?
No.
I think they're blown off in the front. I don't know. I saw one of them walk by.
No, you're good. You're good.
I heard some birds chirping outside your window earlier. I thought you had a pet bird.
I got a bunch of pet birds. We had a house that we were doing. The upstairs wood floors were ready to be sanded and finished, but the downstairs weren't. So we called our wood floor guy and we're like, hey, like, you could look at this as it being a pain in the ass that you're coming to do half the job, or you could look at it as a blessing that you're coming to knock out half, and then depending on what your schedule's going to look like when it comes time to do the downstairs floors, that you'll already have the upstairs finished. And they're actually they're out of town guys that are doing this finishing on this floor. It's a specific type of wood that they need to be the installer on. So he was like, look, I don't mind doing that, but I'm going to have to make 2 trips from Texas now. Is it all right if I charge you $500 more for this, extra round coming here? I said, look, let me ask the owner. We talked to the owner about it. They're like, yeah, that's a great idea. It's $500. Like, get him out here if that'll move things along, and we can get an area of the house completed. So it's, again, I think it's just thinking outside the box, seeing how you can get things done that might not be in the normal flow of what you would typically do, but as long as it's not gonna, cause a finish or surface to get damaged and come back to bite you in the rear end, that it would actually slow it down by getting it done now. We're trying to do everything we can to expedite things like that.
Yeah, it's tough. I typically, I don't run into that a lot because I am self-performing. So oftentimes, in order to get the product that I want, I am bouncing between trades where it's like, hey, I can trim this window out before tile gets up, and then I don't have to guess where the trim's going to be, even though I'm not ready for trim at that point, where like it makes sense for me. So I'm sure that that's a lot harder for you guys now, trying to kind of juggle subs and squeeze them in. I even know on a small job that I just did where like it was rewiring some stuff, getting rid of some knob and tube, and then running some new hi-hats, and it was like I couldn't get them there before I had the drywaller scheduled. So it's like drywall to ceiling, all that stuff will pull wires after, and like marked where everything was going to be. And old framing, old house, all chopped up, they had to cut a couple of extra holes, and it's like patching the ceiling after it was just drywall. But at the end of the day, we still got the drywallers in, that finished, the electrician in, and like the job kept moving, even though it made life a little bit harder to be patching things in. At least we weren't waiting for like a week or bumping the drywaller until the electrician could get there. But I typically don't have to run into that, which I'm sure is just a huge headache for you guys, but it definitely can be done. Oh my goodness, are you okay?
Sorry.
What happened? Allergies?
I have no idea. I woke up with a cough this morning. I went to talk and it was like stuck. I don't know. It's just like the frustrating thing is just every project I feel like we're constantly just filtering through, like Mike, you said, the schedule. It's like we're trying to live by that thing. And you're talking about being super diligent with your schedule. And the one thing I've seen, especially in the past, is that when we build these things in the beginning, and then all of a sudden, like we get our trades to buy in on it, our trades are relying on it, and all of a sudden we're on a job site and a trade shows up because they're following the schedule and we're not ready for them.
Yeah,
that's the worst. I feel like such
and
a
it's like,
dick when that happens.
Yeah, and it's like you just said, you can resolve it by having a conversation with these floor guys ahead, right? It's like, hey, we're not ready, but let's phase you. But in that very moment, that schedule means nothing.
Oh, that's
anymore.
The worst.
Because it's not just them, it's everyone else that's around that realizes that you're not on schedule. Like, that schedule just means nothing. And, and especially now with everything that's going on, it's like if you're not on top of it and keeping that schedule updated and keeping the entire team updated, how can you expect anyone to ever be bought into this thing?
Yeah, you got to maintain.
And it's like, and I'm sitting here thinking about, like, our projects, and it's like, I haven't looked at our schedule compared to what we're doing this week, and it's like, I got to do that this week, and it's like, make sure that we're trying to, because the moment it's the client, it's our subs, it's our trades, it's our team, everything ties back to that, and it's and like, I guess I'm talking in circles here, but my point being is, like, we go into these projects, everything, the sales, the process, the quality, the price, the schedule, with the best intentions, and it's like, if it's not maintained and that communication isn't thorough back and forth throughout the whole process, like, it just means nothing. And it's like that, there's no way you can operate a project where it's like you basically shoot for best case scenario, and then you never revisit that, and you just run through the entire project without ever coming back and revisiting or maintaining that schedule.
Yeah, I can't imagine, like, that would be the tough hang up for me. It seems as though everything on every job changes. So, like, you build a house, even if the house is different right now, and then you start another house 4 months later, like, hang-ups on that job 4 months later are going to be completely different than the hang-ups you just had on this past house. And I think that, a lot of us have just gotten so set in our ways that this is our process. I know at this point I need to call for this inspection to get these subs ready, and then after that, and like, that's just not how it is anymore if you want to keep a job moving along. I see a lot of guys at this point where the production builders are still on top of it because they have systems,
right?
But like the one-off builders, most jobs are just unfinished, or they're dragging on so much longer than they have to because nobody's adapted their systems. And I see a lot of that now. The production guys are hammering, though. Yeah, it's like nothing ever happened.
It's funny because, like, well, that's very true. But it's funny, like, before this whole COVID thing, everyone was promoting systems, and, like, this is how you build your business, and this is how you scale your business. You got to build systems into what you're doing, and the sooner you do that, the sooner you can scale. And more recently, when I was talking about scale, it's not always about growing bigger. It's also, like, growing better quality. Like,
yeah.
It's not. It doesn't have to be quantity. It can be quality, and it's like, that's what systemization will allow you to do is produce at a better quality. And here we are in in this era of the perfect example of, hey, without like now that if you don't have a system right now, you're struggling to keep up because you're shooting from your hip. It's everything's a fire drill and everything you're trying to resolve in the moment, and no one, vendors, material, subcontractors, no one can react that fast, and pair that with the labor issue, it doesn't work. It doesn't compute anymore.
I want the process to be smooth.
And the only way that it can be smooth is if you have it dialed.
Exactly.
Like you
gotta be
what is
on
that
top
saying?
of what's going on and how things are changing and be able to adjust. Like I would, as much as I preach about like quality and level of finish for the most part can always be corrected and adjusted, which sucks. I don't want to have to do that. I want to get it right the first time.
But you're right.
Process, if you don't hit the process and the experience on it,
there's no
the first run. That sets up the tone for quality. So if I schedule, man, I feel like I've been using my plumber as an example. If I schedule the plumber to come a month from now, and I'm not looking at the schedule, and he shows up and we're not ready for him, he's going to be like pissed off. And that already sets the tone for a bad day. That, we can make some adjustments and, okay, we're going to go get the sinks for you. We'll go get them. We'll make sure they're here. Sorry, we didn't have them here. We forgot. We didn't maintain the schedule. Whatever. He's still like in a bad mood. But if we have to pivot from that date 2 weeks in advance and we give him a 2 weeks notice and we're like, hey, dude, look, we had you on the schedule. We just realized that we don't have this. We're not ready. We're not going to be ready. Can we push you back? Or are you willing to do something, part of the work, whatever? You communicate with that with them so that they can make adjustments on their end. They're in a good mood. They're still like amped up about doing a good job. Everybody's been, kept in the loop about these setbacks or whatever. And it's just that much smoother of a process. The other thing for us, I know, Nick, you have a bunch of in-house guys. Do you utilize your in-house guys to assist with subs and vendors if they're shorthanded?
Yep.
I do the same. I think that it helps tremendously. If we need somebody to come and do something and they're like, dude, I just don't have the manpower. And it's like, well, I'll give you two of my guys to help you carry cabinets or wood flooring or whatever it is into the house. I'll provide you with two strong backs to help you do whatever. You just get here, make sure that you have a couple guys here to do the technical stuff. We'll do all the heavy lifting to assist. And they're like, oh my God, that's great. Like, yes, we can meet that date. We will get it done. Thanks for offering that.
At the end of the day, like, this is, we started this conversation around like selling value to our client and not wanting to price, like, bid, competitively bid. And it evolved into like our relationship with our trades and wanting to treat them the way that we want to be treated. But we're summarizing this where it's like it all comes down to communication and advocating for your subs, your trades, your partners, right? Because it's like like you said, Mike, if you have guys in your staff where, like, we have it in our budget as a general labor allowance. Mm-hmm. So that allowance is for a general carpenter to work through the entire job. And some days that might be putting blocking in for the plumber so he's got good screwing backing. Yeah. Or working with the electrician to make sure that the can lights are laid out exactly where they need to be, or strapping gets replaced where the electrician's got to pull it out. And it's, and we explain it to the client, like, you're asking for a really high level home, and there's things that fall into what is like the gray area.
Nobody wants to do it, so we're going to do it.
Yeah. And it's like, and we, the electrician has to put the light there, and he's going to cut the strapping out, and he might put it back, but he might not. Or he might put it back and it might not be in the right spot for our board hangers, and then the board hangers are putting, you know, a seam somewhere that's going to crack. It's like, that's, you know, the whole purpose of that is, you know, it's for the end result, but it's also, it's to advocate for our trades and to make sure that our trades know that, listen, we are selling a very high quality project to our client. We want you to have the resources and communicate the resources that you need in order for you to actually execute at your highest level. And something I said recently is that for a long time, and I'm not saying every builder's like this, but there's this general consensus that builders just price drive these guys into the ground, and it's a race to the bottom for price and
subs.
And for subs.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so you have to think about, like, and I've used my tile guy as an example. It's like, he did not get into tile work to be the cheapest tile guy. He got into tile work probably because he enjoyed it. He enjoyed the craft. And over years and years and years, he was driven like, hey, how can you do that cheaper? Can you do it faster? Can you do it cheaper? Can you do it faster? Can you? And all of a sudden now he's cutting quality or whatever the case is. Yeah, there's going to be built efficiency in that for sure. But oftentimes he's cutting quality or doing something a different way because he's not being paid, you know, to do it the way he wants to do it. So next thing you know, 15 years goes by and he's flying through jobs, and he shows up at my job and he flies through a tile install and he's leaving at lunch. And I'm like, where are you going? And he's like, I got to go grout a backsplash. I'm like, hold up. Like, why can't you just be here all day and just keep working? He's like, I can't afford to do that. I'm like, why? He goes, I don't charge enough. I'm like, so charge me more money. Because there's tile on the floor I'm looking at right now that needs to be ripped out. Like that, you flew through that and you didn't check it. And you didn't check it because you didn't give yourself enough time. And you didn't give yourself enough time because you thought you had to be at a lower price point.
It's just not enjoyable to be doing
anything
that way either. It doesn't matter, like, to feel rushed and under the gun. I mean, you know, all of us thrive on some anxiety and some pressure. Like, that's just built into us. But to feel like you're under the gun all the time behind the 8 ball and just have to, like, make up time. Like, that's the only time I really get frustrated on a job, is when I feel like I left money on the table or I didn't charge properly for something and I'm basically working for free or paying somebody to be there that's costing me money. That's what is frustrating to me. If I know I'm getting compensated fairly and I can take my time and do what I have to do, I'm, like, in a great mood. And I think that probably is the case for most people.
I mean, I know if I'm doing the job, I'm being compensated fairly. And I will never bitch or complain if something's taken longer than I anticipated and I've got to have guys on a job for a month longer, whatever. It is what it is. I know that that's how these projects potentially go. They potentially take longer. They take more time. It is what it is. That's what, you know, if I wanted more certainty and jobs that weren't lasting as long, I'd be building $200,000 spec houses, and it doesn't matter. It's crazy that you brought that up about the tile. My tile guy is phenomenal, but he also works for I don't want to say production builders, but works for builders that don't care what the cuts look like, and there'll be things that I want him to do and verify layouts with me. He's like, Mike, like, I've got all this tile laid out. I need you to come look at it right now. And I said, look, I can't come look at it right now. Start on something else, and then I'm going to come and look at the layout. Like, let's make sure it's right. Well, I'm just going to be sitting there waiting for that. I'm like, look, I get it, man. Like, that's why we're paying you the prices that we're paying you. That's, like, built into it. Is, you know, if you feel like you're not charging me enough, like, let's talk about it and tell me what you need. This is how I want it to be done, and this is how the process is going to be. We need to come on site, verify what you're doing with layout before you're sticking tiles. You need to cut everything. Like, I get it that that's going to take longer. Charge me accordingly for that, because I'm not willing to budge on what we need from you. This is what the scope of work is going to be like.
Right.
And they get it then. And they say, okay, well, they're not feeling rushed to work for X amount of dollars a square foot. They're now charging us their time on it. So it doesn't matter if it takes them 5 hours to do something or 2 hours to do something. And it's giving the client the best quality work that we can give them.
And that's grooming that sub and creating that communication there, because that's something where like you bring somebody in the first time and they don't understand how you work, and maybe you told them, but like they've worked for other builders who don't work that way. And that's like the first time you have that conversation and discuss that, and then moving forward it should be that way. But that's just part of that grooming process for your team that you're building in order to get you. And it may not work with every sub. Like everyone has to be dealt with differently, but for that sub to get their best output, that's what you need to do.
Yeah, but it is that constant reminder, because Mike, like you said, like he's going back and working for another guy at a completely different pace, price point, and everything. And it's like, until, and recently I had the conversation, he's like, I don't want to work for my tile guys. Like, I don't want to work for those guys anymore. I just want to work for a select few guys that really value the quality, so I can slow down. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, I want you to enjoy this. Like, I'm not hiring you because I want you to be super fast. I'm hiring you because I know that you have the ability to produce at a really high quality.
Their potential.
I don't know about you guys, but I've found like the better you want to do something, the slower and longer it takes.
Well, like Mike said, he's not the fastest.
Yeah. I just feel like the more you know, the more involved the projects get. Like
there's more
they
thought.
slow down. Yeah, like they slow down.
Yeah.
Because you're aware of more variables that go into it because of the experiences that you've had previously, that
exactly
you didn't think about X, Y, and Z because it never came up, but it did come up on the last project. So now you're gonna add something into your schedule or your budget. Man, it sucked having to go back to that client and say, we need another $2,000 for crushed limestone because of this. Like, let's add that into our budget. So now every budget has that, because you're probably going to need that, and you're probably going to need to protect this before this can happen. And it's, I don't know, it constantly is evolving and changing, but I think
it's like
go ahead.
It's like every job that you do is that new job experience, and then you're reliving every single failure and past mistake and learning experience of every other job. So you're like, yo, I'm approaching this new job, and then you're also bringing to the table every single screw up that you ever made, where it's like, can't forget about this, and this happened on this job. And like, I even realize it when I have employees and I'm talking to them, like, this one time this happened, and I'm like overwhelming them with the amount of crap that's flying through my head, and I'm just like vocalizing, where I'm like, I think that sometimes you just have to learn this stuff on your own, because like you won't remember it unless it hurts.
So do y'all have subs and vendors that are you call them and you're like, and you're trying to pitch one of these new ideas of how you want to better the project, and they're like, dude, just lay it on me. Like, what kind of crazy shit do you want me to do now?
Yeah. And I think that ideally you align with the people that are on board with that, and we find that like the guys that aren't like interested, they're just not like, it's not that they're bad, they don't fit our model. It's like we got to find people that fit our model.
Yeah, I agree.
Mike, it was awesome having you back on, man. Glad you came for round 2.
Sorry about the mishap earlier in the week with not being able to connect.
No one knew about that. No one knew.
We know now, man. We're going to prepare for that for the next time and add that into our budget.
Next podcast you're on, you make sure you have headphones that work.
Yeah. Or even honestly, to work a computer for that matter.
You killed it, Mike. I think I said this last time you were on the podcast, is that I can't wait to come down to Baton Rouge, and I have you and a few other people I have been promising I'd come down and visit. So maybe now that we're traveling again, we'll make our way down there. I might wait till it's 80 degrees again.
No, 94. Man, come sweat it out.
We're gonna come gator wrestling.
Right, fine.
Now, Mike, I mean, I don't like that many people. I really like Mike, and like, there's not a ton of jobs where I'm like, I want to go see their jobs, and I always want to go see Mike's jobs.
Yeah. Man,
We're gonna have to make it happen.
Let's do it. Come down and wrestle gators and ride some Nutra Rats.
We'll have some crawfish balls.
Burls.
Yeah, we'll do some sick stuff like that.
That's right. Go ride some dirt bikes with them kids, man.
I know. Tilly was on there yesterday.
Maniac.
She's cruising now.
Yeah, definitely. If you guys ever want to come down, we can.
Will do.
We can have a good time. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.
See ya. Mike's a cool dude. He built. If you guys don't follow him, Telich Custom Homes on Instagram. He built some really, really incredible homes. And he's been on the podcast before, but a family man, but also a very, very talented builder.
Yeah, his stuff is amazing, immaculate. Everything that he builds, I love. He does well. It's nothing's overdone.
I love and he's constantly just like, listen, I'm not the fastest, and he just owns it. I feel like I had a turning point on this podcast with all these competitive bidding I've done.
For you?
This is what this podcast is for.
Yeah, I remember having that conversation. All right, so Tilly wants me to tell everyone, because she's sitting on my lap, that she has a wiggly tooth and she already lost one.
Oh my gosh.
So
Marley.
And it's growing back.
Marley had a wiggly tooth and I pulled it out for her.
Yeah.
And every time I came home for about a week and a half, she said, Dad, I lost a tooth. I'm like, Marley, I was the one that took it out. She's like, I know.
It was the door slam.
Yeah, the door slammed.
I just grabbed it.
Yeah, his stuff is immaculate. And I had that same conversation with him where it's just like, yo, tell people you don't competitively bid. And like, it was everything that I wanted to do in business and say, just so like
eloquent.
Clearly stated that I'm like, yeah, that's exact. Like that's, and if people need you elaborate on that, it's very easy to do so, but it's just like a really good firm starting point.
Yeah. No, it's true. And like I said, I feel like there's been so many times where I make the excuse like, oh, this is going to be a good opportunity. And so far it has not been. So either way, guys, you know where to find us. There's no new reviews this week. We gave out some swag last week and the week before. But would love to get some more swag out to you guys. So head over to iTunes, drop us a 5-star review, and let us know how we're doing. And if we'll pick a random user each week and send out some swag. Make sure you include your Instagram username in the comments so we can reach out to you via Instagram and go from there.
Yeah, we got that store all set up too.
We did. Yeah, it's actually in our iTunes bio as well as our Instagram bio. So if you guys want to buy some swag, head over to there. You can pick it up and from one of our sponsors, Upstate Merch.
Yeah, Tilly, go tell people to buy T-shirts. Tell them.
No.
Come on.
What? No, don't listen to her.
Say buy T-shirts.
Buy T-shirts.
Yeah, say buy T-shirts, sweatshirts, and hats.
Buy T-shirts.
No, you got to talk in the microphone.
Buy T-shirts.
Sweatshirts.
Sweatshirts.
And hats.
And hats.
And thank you.
And thank you.
And thank you to our other sponsors, Duration, Rockwall, and Reno Run.